Assalamu alaikum, fam. Hope you're doing well. So, there is some things I've been noticing about how Prophet Job, may Allah be pleased with him, has become a huge figure for me. And this is something that's really made me feel motivated. And when I was an atheist, I looked at that example and thought that was cruel. That if God loves you, you would be given, the golden road, as they say. But now, after going through this whole coup and seeing how the government strips things from you, how coercion, oppression, segregation, harassment, degradation, these very oppressive, brutal attempts to have your bodily autonomy revoked, right? This was interesting because, how do I put it in the best way that's very understandable? When I watched this business I was gonna work at be built from the cement all the way up, I got excited for it. I was ready to let it go. The job that I left eventually closed because of the lockdowns, and the one I went into went out of business and did mass layoffs in a certain location for a long time. And this was a big disappointment. So it was a huge, everything crushed. And going in, I was really motivational of, okay, we gotta do this for the old people. And then more information came out. Things started changing. Things started developing. And the myth of we're in this together became more clear and more clear. And when we saw here, for example, how many things went out of business and how crime went up and that the government's response was abysmal, and how rent was still due, and in the undocumented community, where there's a lot of immigrants, there was zero help for them, and unemployment, even if you had benefits and stuff, and you had to wait and process it, it still wasn't enough to cover rent. And a landlord could not evict you for a certain time period, but the landlord lost money, he suffered, his employees suffered, and you still have to pay that just as a deferred payment, so it's piling up. So $1,600 a month for me, others it's $3,000. When the government shuts you down and doesn't give you any money, pulls the rug out from underneath you, their response was brutal and collapsed so many people's lives, right? And then when people started getting it, the kufi kuf, and there was, I didn't know anyone who suffered and had to be put in some place. But a lot, we would just work together. They're like, oh, had this, felt that, didn't really need anything, and they was over it. Same for me when I got it and I was taking care of my daughter's father. And we saw this was a huge crackdown. And then we didn't see any huge, new hospitals being built, right? Things just were so out of whack that this whole fake mantra of we're in this together was an illusion. So the secular, liberal institution safety net wasn't there. And in that moment of everything being pulled away in the beginning, financially, this was intense. And I remember this is when I really got attached to the whole concept of Tawheed, because in my mind it was like, where's God? I need to focus my mind and just go with God, right? Go with Allah. And turning to Allah alone and not doing things like shirk, the mindset of, I should, there's an omen here, or, a special, I don't know, you know what I mean. I don't need to give examples, but some people, they start praying to intercessors, you know how it goes. But for me, it was just connect with God, pray to Allah, come on Allah, help me endure, right? And so as this whole thing played out, when it now became you can't go to your classes if you don't have it. It was like I had to, test myself and be like, am I going to allow this? And then when you see people take things away, oh, you won't be able to travel, you won't be this, you won't be that. And I thought, what happens when nations don't allow their bodies to be ruled by their people alone? I mean, the biggest example for me was China's one-child policy and how doctors bought sterilization stuff, especially the stuff they're using on the Uyghurs, for example, is made by Big Pharma for money, and nobody helps. And the doctors literally culled thousands of babies. So many children were abandoned and suffered because of this policy. And they justify it for the greater good of population density, when you can just tell your people, hey, maybe you should move. Maybe go live somewhere else. Just leave the city, It seems like way more rational thing. Like, hey, let's use some of our money to get people settled and, have them immigrate, instead of, oh, let's have officers snatch women off the streets and take them into a center and, stuff like that. Footage was leaked, and social media, which has, heavy ties to Beijing, censored those images, but I've seen some. And stuff like that, you start to appreciate what the Constitution is and what it means to be a person to say, I don't consent. And not having someone say, big daddy government's here, lay down, you owe us, we'll hold everything hostage. Like, for example, when Macron, the leader of France, said he's going to make them uncomfortable, the way Australia is treating its people, you start to notice, like, they're taking away luxuries. How can you endure with luxuries? Because the whole liberal strategy was make them uncomfortable. Because liberals are very about city life, comfort, grid living. They mock religious conservatives like the Amish and stuff for not having their tech toys. They are very heavy in their sense of futurism and modernity and rejecting primitive forms of living, right? So, for me, it was like, Prophet Job, may Allah be pleased with him, he suffered way worse and he didn't turn against Allah or lose hope. And you never know if you get put in a gulag. You never know if you're put in one of these forced camps. You never know if you're the one standing alone and you're exiled. You have to stand for your principles and your conviction, and don't let luxuries be a sort of bribery for you. Because bribing and coercion are very sick strategies, and they're not persuasive, and they're not based in liberty. So I found this to be very provoking in terms of strength. So these past, going on 3 years now, Prophet Job and Tawheed and learning how to suffer even more and not be resentful for it was amazing. And then also being attacked countlessly by other Muslims the entire way. I mean, I've never been more attacked in my life than by other Muslims. It's been Muslims who've caused me the most crime by hacking and stalking and insanity. And yes, they are bad Muslims, but they definitely are not fake ones pretending to be that. So it was interesting to go through all those pressures at the same time. With stalkers, hackers, slanderers, people misinterpreting what I said, taking the worst interpretation. People kept hacking my Facebook page, and I had baby pictures of my daughter, and I had to delete it, and there was a couple old pictures, and the hackers took some of those images, which are regular images by American standards, and tried to lie and say that I was doing that now. And people believed it, and people were messaging me and telling me, oh, somebody is creating all these accounts and DMing people images of you. It's very bizarre, just so you know. And so all these strange attacks, and then getting attacked by people who denied certain things that I said. Like, it was really intense, just all the different angles, both by other YouTube content creators and online, with the restrictions and with them attacking my business, my little tiny Etsy shop, trying to tell people I'm satanic. I mean, it was just insane. I mean, there was people saying that I worked for the CIA. I mean, come on. Really? You know, it's just like, and they're like, you old pale reverts. You know, they secretly are these plants and stuff, and you're like, what is? No one tells you that when you become a Muslim, you're gonna go through this sort of, just toxicity. You know, it's really horrible. That saying, you know, I'm glad I knew Islam before I knew Muslims, became just so true. But it was like a cycle that really makes me look up to Job. And I just feel so bonded to, like, whenever I'm struggling, I think of him. Because he was afflicted in so many ways, and he just had to deal with it. It reminds me of, like, the fisherman who has a bad leg, but he still gets on the boat and steers the ship. He's got to go out and get the fish. You know, he's got to go get the shrimp. You got to do what you got to do. And I respect that. There's something about Prophet Job that has just been inspiring me so much to be stronger, to be more resilient, and to not give up. And my trials that Allah has put me through for 2 years now, going on 3, really, really makes you feel like, wow, if Allah has put me through this and Allah has allowed me to survive, whew, you know there's going to be more trials in the future. But imagine if I keep doing good, getting better as I go, and keep, you know, getting back up each time you fail, there will be, like, really good rewards in paradise. And remember how, like, we're told that when the Ad-Dajjal comes, there's going to be drought, and he's going to have, like, bread, and he's going to have control of the weather, or there's going to be a bait there, like food, water, stuff, and people are going to go to him, and they're not going to be able to resist the temptation. It feels to me like this energy of, like, evil energy that has, like, these, imagine, like, jewels in its hand, and it's extending it to you, and you're poor, and you're like, wow, I could sell one of those and get all this money. But you resist and say, that's haram, theft is wrong, I'm not going to take the bribe, I'm not going to take the bait, I'm going to stay in my poor condition no matter what. That is how I feel. And I gotta say, Prophet Job is really, when you don't allow the liberal atheist interpretation, like, God is evil because he did this suffering, it's like, hold up, no. It really, like, if you just endure the attacks, right? It just comes like all this energy, like, and you're like, oh, it reminds me, like, you have your shield and just all these arrows dumping down, and you're just like, oh, one arrow gets through, man. You might get one here, you might get one there, but you hold the line, you hold your spot. You don't lose courage, you don't lose your fortitude, right? I'm not saying you don't become flexible or adapt or nuanced, but I'm saying that when you know that you have a principle and you try to hold on to it really tight, no matter what, you know, that's powerful. And that's what Job did. And he suffered illness, and he wasn't like, oh, I gotta go to the king and the king's gotta tell me what to do. You know, he endured alone. You feel me? He endured it alone. Yeah, his wife was there, but even she, to the moment, was like, ask Allah for relief. And he was like, you know, he's gonna strike her, and then Allah was merciful, and then it was like grass or whatever, right? When he went to strike. But Prophet Job, man, endurance, steadfastness, fortitude. People now are like way more fragile. How much did he suffer? He wasn't afraid of illness. He wasn't afraid of, like, pain. Not saying that you seek it, but that when you get it, you endure it. I mean, it's fascinating. So I just wanted to kind of share these thoughts with you because he's been in my mind a lot, you know? there's just so many other examples I'm sure you have in your own life where you were specifically reminded of one of the prophets, right? Wow. It's just amazing. So may we all be like Prophet Job. And when our back's against the wall, we're being crushed on all sides, when you're surrounded, you don't flip-flop. You don't cave in. You don't live on your knees. Even if you're pushed to the ground and you're holding your arm up, you still have your dignity till the very end. Man, this is amazing. What do you think, fam?